What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers for UFC Vegas 85. We got Nassourdine Imavov going against Roman Dolidze, and just making sure the stream's working. I think it is. Hopefully, okay, yeah, it's working. So everything's working, guys. We had a week off last week, which kind of sucks, man. I mean, I'm sick of these weeks off, but Uncle Weezy let me know today we have like what 12 cards straight, 12 cards. So I think the next break is like January, February, March. Is it like April, like late April?
Yes, I think that's what we're at right now. I mean, and they might add on more just because it is 3 months ahead. They might just still say, all right, we're going to keep going. So, yeah, 12 weeks at least in a row. So strap it down, ladies and gentlemen. We got a lot of work to do. There's going to be no breaks, and we're going to be stacking them every event. So let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, looking forward to it. It's not an 18-week stretch just yet like we had last year, but yeah, 12 events in a row. I'm looking forward to nonstop UFC. I hate weeks without UFC. I just don't know what to do on Saturday. Like yesterday was Saturday. I already forget what I did. I don't think I did anything besides maybe like take care of the baby. So yeah, boring. I mean, boring stuff. So I'm glad to have fights back. And yeah, Weezy, this is a good card. UFC Vegas 85. I see people maybe kind of crapping on it a little bit. I think it's good. I think once you dig more into some of these matchups, we have some very fun fights. Not the most name value. Like, because when I did first look into the card, I'm like, my gosh, we have a Contender Series card coming up. But I think a lot of these matchups are going to be fun. We got the return of Molly McCann. That should be fun. We have Julija Stoliarenko. She always brings it. And we have, so some good fights overall. So, as always, I am here with Uncle Weezy. Weezy, what is up? Are you looking forward to UFC Vegas 85 and beyond? We have some great cards coming up for the rest of the year. UFC 299, UFC 300, UFC 298, Topuria, Volkanovski. We have some great cards coming up, and this is a good card.
Yeah, it is. I like it. And I'll be the first to say when I think we're being slighted, when I think that the UFC is just putting one together, like slipping one together to be like, hey, we're meeting our contractual obligations, like showing up for the last day of work. It's like I have already quit. I already gave you my 2 weeks notice, but you show up that last day and you don't do shit. Well, the UFC does put out cards like that from time to time, and this isn't one of them, in my opinion. I love the matchmaking. We're going to get some of these Contender Series cards where they're putting those Contender Series guys to work, and it's a high profit card because they're not paying the fighters a lot of money. But sometimes those fights, they get to put together some really exciting matchups, exciting stylistic matchups, exciting young fighters that we don't know a lot about, but that we're going to find out more about. And this is one of those cards. I like it. I mean, I was excited to break down a lot of these fights, and taping a lot of these guys has been a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to breaking it down with you, Brady, with the chat here on Pub Sports Radio. We got 12 straight weeks coming up, so let's start it off on a positive note here for UFC Vegas 85.
Yep, it's a good Apex card. I say it's going to be a lot better than the card that's like March with Amanda Hebos and Rose Namajunas, the headline, and the co-main event as of now is Julian Rosa, Ricardo Ramos. So I think this card is going to be better than that. I can't believe that's a card. But yeah, looking forward to it. Before we get started, if you guys could, please leave a like on the video. Subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. I know a lot's going on. Apparently, there's like football tonight. I think it's the Lions and the 49ers. So that's going on. Other stuff going on. But yeah, appreciate you all hanging out. Appreciate you guys catching the replay. I do want to shout out the Pub Sports Radio Pick'ems contest. It is free. 100% free each week to enter, and it's $100 to first. If you get first place, $100 to you, free to enter, kind of like a Tapology prediction. You pick the fighter, the method, and the round there. So $100 to first, doesn't hurt to enter. All right, and then I do want to shout out the chat as well. We got Mushroom, as always. It seems like first one in here. He was in here at 3:57 p.m. What's up, Brady? Uncle Weezy, Stat Diggers makes the stacks bigger. Let's go. We got Iceland Farts in the building. What is up, Iceland Farts? We got Victor DeJesus in the building as well. We got Mike in the building. Sorry about your Ravens. I ended up watching that game in Lamar. He looked awful today. We got Tony with the 499 donut. Appreciate you, Tony C. He says, let's go, Brady and Weezy. The question for this week is, has the UFC found a low enough level opponent for Molly the McCann? And I think they're trying to, like, they're giving her a fighter that she already, like, dominated. So they're trying to. We'll see if she can go out there and pull it off as a -300 favorite. Weezy, any initial thoughts on that matchup that's going to happen Saturday?
Yeah, she's the female version of Patty Pimblett. I mean, they'll literally send Shelby out there with a shovel to a graveyard, dig up the rotting corpse of Tony Ferguson and throw him in there with Patty Pimblett. And so, yeah, they want to get Molly a win, so she's moving down a weight class, and they got her fighting somebody that she's already beaten. So, yeah, it does kind of smack of a little bit of desperation. It smacks of the UFC trying to get Molly McCann a win, but we'll see what happens. The best laid plans sometimes go tits up with the best of them, Brady. So we'll see what happens here.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. We got Brandon in the building. Interesting to see we got in the builder fight. Yeah, that builder fight's going to be a very interesting one to talk about. We got Glimbot in the building. We got Daniel. We got Justin. We got Camden. What is up? Yeah, Neil Magny is coming for the belt. I mean, that was a great come from behind victory there. Wish he subbed him, but you know, TKO, it is what it is. And why is Stoliarenko fighting Neil Magny this week? Is that true? That'd be a good matchup.
He's saying that Luana looks like Neil Magny, and they actually have the exact same hair. She does have a Neil Magny haircut. So,
wow.
And they're kind of built the same too.
Dude.
No. I mean, like Neil Magny is one of those guys that you have to physically keep him out of the cage. He would probably fight 11 times a year if you let him. So this could be him cosplaying as a female flyweight, and just so he could get more fights every year, you know, that would be hilarious. And I guess the question to the Stat Diggers audience and to the Pub Sports Radio audience, Brady, is: has anybody seen Neil Magny and Luana Carolina in the same room at the same time? Reggae Panda, shout out to you for bringing that up, man.
It's so wrong. I can't unsee it though. Like I can't literally unsee it. So shout out to Neil Magny trying to go back to back here. Maybe get another upset win. We got Jeff in the building. What is up? We got Panda, of course. Yeah, and looks like Neil Magny as well. I can't unsee it. But Weezy, we got a lot to talk about, and I say we just get right into it then. We have the first fight of UFC Vegas 85. We talked a little bit about it before the show. It's like, why are they putting a heavyweight fight as the first fight of the night? I'm not sure if they're going to change this bout order, but typically for some reason, they tend to put these heavyweight fights, like these Apex heavyweight fights, on the main card. Like there's been some weird heavyweight fights in the past on the main card, like Jared Vandera, Chase Sherman's, Carlos Felipe. Like they typically like putting these heavyweight fights on the main card, but no, they're putting this fight as the first fight of the card as of now. And it's a good one. We got Thomas Peterson going against Jamal Pogues. We got Peterson, 28 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. Pogues, 28 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach. Same age there. We got Pogues, 2 inches taller, 3-inch reach advantage as well. Peterson, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. His only loss coming to Waldo Cortez Acosta by 3rd-round knockout. Then has 3 wins in a row, including a 2nd-round submission win against Chandler Cole on the Contender Series. As far as Jamal Pogues, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Had a 2 Contender Series wins. He got signed after the last one, against Paulo Renato Jr. in a pretty boring decision win. Beats Josh Parisian by decision and then loses to Mick Parkin his last time out. So Weezy should be an interesting heavyweight fight here. It's weird, like, you know, Thomas Peterson on paper is like the smaller guy. He's going to have a height and reach disadvantage, but he is definitely the more natural heavyweight. Jamal Pogues has fought primarily at light heavyweight for a lot of his career. It looks like he's no longer doing that. And he looked good at light heavyweight, you know, but now he's fighting at heavyweight. Whereas Thomas Peterson, this guy's never making light heavyweight ever. It's just not going to happen. So I feel like Peterson's the more natural heavyweight. He's a very good wrestler. I guess the one concern I have with Peterson is potentially the cardio. The one time we did see him in the 3rd round, he did slow down as the fight went on. But I don't know. I've just never been really big on Pogues. It seems like he's just completely changed up his style. He went from a guy that was fighting at light heavyweight first and foremost, a guy that was a good wrestler, to a guy that at this point of his career just seems to have no finishing instinct, just seems to want to kind of stick on the outside and jab for 15 minutes. Just a very boring style, it looks like. So kind of a clash of styles here, if you will. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this first fight of the card?
Yeah, so let's start with Pogues, because there's a lot of reasons to like Jamal Pogues in this fight on paper, right? I mean, Pogues, they're both 28 years old, but Pogues is actually the younger guy. He's the younger guy who's more experienced as a pro, 5 more fights about 90 more minutes in the cage. He's been fighting as a pro for about 3 more years than Thomas Peterson has. He's got a couple more fights at the UFC level, 30 more minutes of UFC cage time. Jamal Pogues is the better boxer. He's got a nice jab, a nice 1-2. He's athletic and he's faster than Thomas Peterson. And he's a good wrestler in his own right. And he's definitely fought the better brand of competition over his career as well. So, you know, Pogues as an underdog is intriguing for all those reasons. But with Tom Peterson, you know, you got a guy that is a very elite wrestler for the heavyweight division. Tom started wrestling, Brady, at the age of 3. Can you imagine bringing your son to a wrestling practice at 3 years old? I mean, what the hell are you accomplishing? You know, I mean, like, is he going to compete at that age? It's like you're just toughening up somebody, like you're stealing their childhood from them. You know, I mean, really, that's a dick move to make your son start wrestling at 3. I started wrestling at a young age myself, and I just remember, you know, like to make a young child sit in wrestling rooms for long hours where it just smells like hot balls in there, you know. It's a tough way to grow up, man. But you grow up fast and you become very tough, and that's what Tom Peterson is. He's Minnesota tough, you know, a 2-time state champion wrestler in high school. Then he goes to one of the top college wrestling programs in the country that isn't Division I at Iowa Central University, where John Jones got his start, where Cain Velasquez got his start, where Colby Covington got his start. And Thomas Peterson won nationals, NAIA nationals at Iowa State there. So this guy has got an elite heavyweight wrestling pedigree. Now, when you watch that Jamal Pogues fight versus Alex Polizzi at 205, you see Polizzi just dominate Jamal in the wrestling. It's a bad look because Polizzi's also a high-level college wrestler. But frankly, if Tom Peterson were to wrestle Polizzi, he'd be minus 1,000. You know, I mean, like Tom Peterson would, you know, because he's a heavyweight and Polizzi's a smaller guy, would have thrown this dude around. Another thing that's really, really concerning is, like, you watched all the tape on Peterson, right? Can you imagine what Tom Peterson would do to Josh Parisian?
Oh, God. No.
Right? I mean, he's got no ground game. I mean, Dante O'Mays looked like Damian Maia when he fought Josh Parisian. He got him down. Remember, he was like cup slamming him. He put his crotch in Parisian's face and was hitting him in the face with his own cup. I mean, just emasculated the poor fat guy. And Pogues actually got taken down at one point by Josh Parisian. And Pogues didn't dominate Parisian on the ground. The other thing here is that there's a massive power differential on the feet in this fight. Because Tom Peterson's opponents have to constantly worry about that wrestling, it makes his striking way better than it actually is. And he throws with a lot of power. He's a southpaw, so that's a problem for some opponents as well. He's absolutely one-punch knocked out dudes. Vernon Lewis, one of his first fights against a big Hawaiian dude named Chemo. First punch he throws, a straight left, just absolutely just flatlines this 280-pound Chemo heavyweight Hawaiian dude, right? So big power differential here on the feet, big wrestling differential here. And even if Thomas Peterson gasses out like he did in the 3rd round against Waldo Cortez Acosta, is Jamal Pogues finishing him? I mean, if Peterson wrestles successfully for the first 2 rounds against Pogues, Pogues isn't going to have anything left in the tank in the 3rd round either. I mean, he doesn't have great conditioning. So I don't really know how Pogues wins this fight. He doesn't land big shots. He's probably going to get clipped on the feet, and he's most likely going to get taken down and his head pounded through the canvas in the very first round. My suggestion to anybody that's thinking about betting Jamal Pogues this week, wait until the first round is over, please, because Pogues is not finishing anybody in the first round, and he's probably going to get prison raped by this dude in the first round on the mat. I think it's going to be, I think Jamal Pogues is running into a dick saw on Saturday here in the very first round, and that Thomas Peterson's going to maul this dude.
Yeah, kind of lean the same way. I was looking at Jamal Pogues' Instagram because I wanted to kind of see what shape this guy's in. Because sometimes he shows up, he looks in really good shape, and then sometimes he just looks in like really bad shape. Like on the Contender Series, looked in really bad shape. Looked in really bad shape in the Parkin fight. And anyway, I was going through his Instagram and I found some concerning stuff. To be honest, I mean, I don't know what's going on here with Jamal Pogues, but some very, let me go back to that. Just some very concerning photographs. So, I mean, I don't know.
I like this. I like it a lot.
He's showing a little bit of leg there with a fireman.
Oh, it's great.
Wow. There's some dancing. Is that Patrick Starr?
Who?
SpongeBob.
Okay, I don't know that.
And then
that is.
I don't know what this is all about. But he's riding a what is that?
It's a spaceship, is what it is.
Spaceship. He's riding a spaceship. So
looks like Jamal's having fun, man.
Nothing wrong with having fun.
Yeah, man. That's but he's got a tough fight in front of him, dude. This guy Peterson's a phenomenal wrestler, and he's got heavy ground and pound. And his jiu-jitsu isn't bad. He's like a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, but he has a tendency of using that ground and pound to pass the dominant positions, make you give up your back. And when you do that, he just flattens you out and just pounds you out. So yeah, Pogues got to keep this standing if he's going to have any chance. And even if he does, I think that he could win 4.5 minutes in the first round, and then Peterson lands one big left and it's over. So yeah, I got a big bet on Tom Peterson, 3.5 units at -170 here.
There you go. The line is kind of around the air right now. We got Peterson. He opened up -270, currently -170. Pogues opened up +230, currently +145. I think the total is kind of interesting. Like the over 1.5 is juiced to -240. And I think that's kind of interesting considering like when Peterson wins, it's typically under 1.5 rounds. So, but we talked about it earlier. Like if we're betting an under here, you know, you might as well just bet Peterson into the distance or Peterson under 1.5 rounds, because Pogues, I just don't see him finishing anybody. It just doesn't seem like he wants to finish anybody.
Yeah, he's not a power guy. He's got good minute winning wherever the fight goes. He's a great wrestler. You know, he can wrestle. He can get fighters down and win minutes there, and he can win minutes on the feet. But he's kind of low volume on the feet. 30% accuracy, only 8.25 distance strike attempts per minute. 51% defense isn't good. And I know that Thomas Peterson really hasn't beaten anybody that's either like 38 years old or older, or just morbidly obese, like Chandler Cole is, you know. But I also think that there's not a lot of people lining up to fight Thomas Peterson. This is not a guy that's going to have an easy time getting fights. You just watch what happens here, man. Nobody's going to be picking up the phone to fight this dude.
Yep, I like it. I like it. I haven't bet anything yet, but I'm looking at something. I want to see where this line goes. Maybe the price on Peterson does get better. It looks like -166 on DK right now. That's not bad. But inside the distance for Peterson might be something to look at. He's finished all of his wins, and then I might look at like the Peterson to win in rounds 1 or rounds 2. But maybe the money line's the way to go. We'll see. Pogues has been finished a lot though. Hasn't he been finished like 3 times?
Yeah, 3 out of his 4 losses are finishes. One of them came in the 4th round though, in the Polizzi fight. He got caught in a heel hook. And also, you know, when Peterson got finished by Waldo, keep in mind that was a 5-round fight. So I don't think you really saw Peterson wrestle as much as he would had it only been scheduled for 15 minutes. And it wasn't until the 15th minute of the fight that he got knocked out. So before that, you know, he really had Waldo in a couple of really bad spots on the ground, landed massive ground and pound. That might have knocked out a lot of people, not named Waldo Cortez Acosta, who's got phenomenal conditioning and durability.
And a nice salsa dance as well. That Waldo.
God, don't start.
Very good. Very good. Justin says, well, thank you, Brady. Always provide the best behind the scene info. That's what we do here. And that's what we strive to do here on Stat Diggers on Pub Sports Radio. We like to dive as deep as possible. And we like to look into some things that maybe aren't talked about enough, like haircuts and whether or not somebody's dressing up as, was that Medea? I don't know.
I think so. I think it's some Tyler Perry thing. I don't know. You know, I'm just not up on that stuff.
Yeah, me as well. But we can move on to the next fight. We have Landon Quinones going against Marco Medeiros. We got Quinones, 28 years old, 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. We got Medeiros, 27 years old, 5'10" with a 69-inch reach. We have Medeiros 1 year younger. Medeiros is going to have a 1-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Quinones is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut, I think it was on short notice against Nasrat Haqparast. And honestly, like, that was a impressive debut there. He was actually having success against Haqparast early on. About took his leg off multiple times, and it looked like Quinones might start to even take over. But Quinones did end up slowing down a little bit. Again, this was on short notice, and he ate a ton of shots. I mean, this guy had to have, I think it was like something like 200 significant strikes just about against Nasrat Haqparast. Showed a great chin, great durability. But overall, I was impressed with his performance there. Marco Medeiros was on the Contender Series. He fought Aliaskhab, who is a grappler, and he made it look pretty easy. He was able to stuff the takedowns, keep it on the feet, and then knocked him out with a big knee. Medeiros, really good striker, training out of Factory X with, you know, those guys over there. Takedown defense checks out. He can wrestle a little bit offensively as well if he needs to, but his striking is really good. I think we got a striker versus striker matchup here, Weezy. Two relatively new guys. We got Medeiros making his debut, Quinones making his official debut, I'd say, after, you know, taking a short notice fight against Nasrat Haqparast. Very tough fight there. I think it's going to be a fun fight here. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, my thoughts are I'm very agnostic on who's going to win this fight because I'm really high on both of these guys. I think they're both really good prospects. I bet on Landon Quinones in the Haqparast fight because Haqparast is kind of a guy who doesn't really put stamps on a lot of his wins. He'll go to decision. And, you know, even though Landon took that fight on very short notice and it was in Australia, he looked very good there. You know, he's game. He's very durable. And I think he's got a well-rounded skill set. You know, Landon can keep fights on the feet when he thinks he's the better striker, and he can mix in the wrestling when he thinks he's not, maybe could be in a little bit of danger on the feet. And on the other side with Medeiros, you got a guy who's even younger than Landon Quinones is at only 27 years of age. He's a year younger than Landon is, and he's almost as experienced. We know, one less pro fight, about 10 less minutes of pro cage time. And, you know, and if you watch Medeiros' most recent fights, like the fight against Aliaskhab, the fight against Lamperis, you know, you would think that, oh, okay, Markel's a really good striker, and he's going to keep that fight standing and really dominate with his striking. But when you go further back behind that, the Mike Murphy fight, a bunch of these other fights, you see him being the one that is initiating the wrestling and actually winning minutes on the ground against his opponents for a guy that's only 27 years old and only has 9 professional fights. And keep in mind, only 2 years and 7 months is the length of this guy's pro career at this point, Medeiros. He's clearly fast-tracked and ready for this level because he is a guy who knows how he has several tools in the toolbox, Brady, and he knows when to use what tool. He's demonstrating the ability to be able to out-wrestle strikers and out-strike wrestlers and grapplers and know the difference of when to do what. He's well-coached coming out of Factory X. You know he's going to have a good team there behind him. He's got good size for the division, good length of division, good striking, good cardio, and good wrestling and top control. And so he's the complete package as well. One thing I did notice is Medeiros is very hittable on the feet. You know, he gets hit a lot. He's pretty durable. He pressures forward, but I think Landon is going to be landing on him a lot. And Landon is a good wrestler in his own right. You know, I kind of feel like this is like a flip a coin situation because Landon showed great poise, making a short notice UFC debut in Australia against a guy like Haqparast, who had like almost 10 UFC fights at that point in his career under his belt. So, you know, I think that this one could go either way. We've never seen either of these guys get finished as a pro. So maybe look at the over in this fight, but I think they're both pretty dangerous guys as well. So I think this is a great fight. Who are you leaning towards to win this one?
Yeah, it's one of those fights where this was the toughest fight for me to call on the entire card. I think it probably should be a pick 'em. So I'm gonna probably go with the dog here in Quinones with little to no confidence. I think these two are very well matched. And then it looks like Medeiros minus 142, Quinones plus 122. So it's a close line, but I also have interest in the over. Like the over, I'm kind of surprised is at plus money. I know both guys are very dangerous, but on the flip side, both guys are next level tough. I don't think anybody's finishing Quinones, and Medeiros is pretty tough in his own right. So I kind of like the over at plus money instead of picking or betting aside here because I'm not sure who wins this fight. I like them both, and I think it's going to be close, but I like the over if anything.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Don't really care who wins this fight in terms of from a betting angle, but if I were to see Medeiros push out to like minus 170 and I could get Quinones at plus 145, plus 150, then maybe I'm jumping on board, but this line is probably about where it should be. I mean, Medeiros really showed out in that Dana White Contender Series fight.
He did. Completely different stylistic matchup here, though, but he did. He looked really good. Really good. So, yeah, looking forward to both these guys, seeing which one comes out on top. Don't have a strong lean, and so for me, it's probably dog or pass, but the over at plus money is kind of what I like more. All right. Time for the people's main event. We have the return of Julija Stoliarenko going against Neil Magny? Question mark? Maybe. We'll see. We got Luana Carolina. She is 29 years old, 5'6" with a 69-inch reach. Julija Stoliarenko. She is 30 years old, 5'7" with a 66-inch reach. We got Carolina 1 year younger. Stoliarenko with a 1-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach disadvantage. Carolina, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. She had a decision win against Poliana Botelho, a decision win against Lupita Godinez, knockout loss against Molly McCann, decision loss against Joanne Wood, and then a decision win against Ivana Petrovic. As far as Stoliarenko, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. Submission loss against Julia Avila, decision loss against Alexa Davis, a submission win against Jessica Rose Clark, knockout loss against Chelsea Chandler, and then a submission win against Molly McCann in the first round. I'm a big fan of Stoliarenko. I think she's fun. I don't think she's that great, but I think she's a fun fighter. I remember the Jessica Rose Clark fight where she was an underdog because I think she's been a dog in all of her fights. And she looked like possessed walking out. She looked possessed. She was foaming out of the mouth, and you could tell by the walkout like she was going to win that fight. And what I liked in that fight was she actually got a takedown, which that's not really her game. I don't think Stoliarenko's the best wrestler in the world. But she's completed a couple takedowns her last couple fights. I think her wrestling is kind of improving, but I think the best part of Stoliarenko's game is like the aggressiveness. She's way over aggressive and she's very hittable. She'll eat punches with her face. She's not defensively sound at all, but that pressure definitely causes problems. And her game is that armbar, right? 11 wins. I think like 10 of them are arm bars. It's ridiculous. So if this fight hits the mat, she's going to be very dangerous. And like I said, if she is going out there making improvements in the wrestling, she is getting fights down the mat, she's going to start winning a lot more fights. So I like that from Stoliarenko. Carolina, she does have good takedown defense, though, 72%. I remember the fight with Lupi Godinez. Although Lupi came up a weight class on short notice, she's able to stuff the majority of takedowns from Lupi. But yeah, good takedown defense nonetheless. I don't know. I think you did as well. Maybe you did. I know I did because I'll never forget it. I bet Luana Carolina as a pretty big dog against Ivana Petrovic, and that bet almost like ended me in the hospital because there were some really sketchy moments with Luana Carolina. She was making mistakes. She was going down to the mat with Petrovic. I thought she was going to get like heel hooked or get like toe holded in the 3rd round. I mean, it was very tough to watch, but she got the dub nonetheless. I don't know, Weezy. It's a tough fight to call because Stoliarenko really shouldn't be a favorite against anybody. And if you are going to bet Stoliarenko, you better by first round sub. That's how she wins all of her fights. And I think I'm kind of leaning that way, but it's hard to have a ton of confidence in her, to be honest. I don't think she's really great at much of anything other than that pressure and that arm bar. And it's hard to favor you off of that, but she is favored in this fight. So it's a kind of a mess of a fight. First round arm bar submission win for Stoliarenko is probably going to be a bet for me. But other than that, I don't know if I can stomach laying chalk on Julija Stoliarenko. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, and if you're thinking of doing that for Stoliarenko, I get why you're doing it. I mean, like, first of all, Stoliarenko moving down to 125, making the weight comfortably against McCann in that last fight was kind of like, oh, okay. You know, that's impressive, you know, because she had problems making 135. So when you saw her make weight at 125 and do it looking good, like not passing out on the scale and smiling, you're like, okay, all right, maybe things are changing right now for Julija, because she's only 30. You know, it's not like she's over the hill. She's just been around for a long time. She turned pro at the age of 18, dude. You know, and she was, you know, she was doing that left way shit where like they're literally where headbutts are legal. You know, it's a sport that they do in Burma, I think. It's like a kickboxing sport where headbutting is legal. So Julija is tough. And when you watch that Molly McCann fight and you listen to the interview after the fight, or maybe it was the Jessica Rose Clark, but you know, whoever was interviewing was like, you know, you broke her arm, you know, was that your intention? And she said, look, you know, we're in the hurt business here, and you know, we should do that because we don't want to leave a doubt in the mind of the crowd, of the fans, of the referee who won the fight. So, you know, this is what we're supposed to do. She was like, breaking arms. Julia's a tough girl. Make no mistake, she's the more dangerous fighter, I think, wherever this fight goes. Even on the feet, Brady, she throws with power and purpose. She's looking to hurt you. She's a gamer. But you don't want to just say that Luana Carolina is not going to be there and not going to be ready for her, because Luana's tough. She's got 7 UFC fights. She's won 4 of them. And you look at the combined record of her opponents, it's about exactly the same as Julija. You know, 34 and 32 is the combined record of Luana Carolina's opponents, and the 14 and 14 are the ones that she's beating. And for Stoliarenko, it's 27 and 25, 10 and 10 are the girls that Julija is beating. So I think that there's a big power differential here with Stoliarenko, and obviously in terms of grappling, you know, dangerous grappling, massive differential in favor of Stoliarenko. And now she seems to finally be at the right weight class for her. I like Stoliarenko to win this fight, and I think she probably gets it done by first round submission. She's kind of being very aggressive on the feet, which I love, Brady, because what does that do? That opens up the opportunity to make your opponent aggressive, and then you get that duck under double leg entry that Stoliarenko is so good at getting. She turns the corner, she gets to half guard, and then she starts isolating an arm. Whether she's on top or on the bottom, she's coming for your arm, and you're going to be holding your breath if you got a Luana Carolina ticket if this fight gets to the ground.
Yeah, I was holding my breath when I had a Carolina ticket in the Petrovich fight. I mean, that was terrifying. Yeah, so I double checked. Julija Stoliarenko has 11 wins, 10 of them coming in the first round, and all 10 of those first round finishes come by armbar. And she also has 1 amateur win, Weezy, and guess what it was?
Was it a heel hook?
No, close.
Von Flue choke.
Yes, no, it was a first round armbar. So, yeah. And then Jeff brings up in the chat, Luana Carolina nearly got armbarred in the round 1 of loop, which she did. If there was a couple more seconds on the clock, you know, that fight could have been ended there. So, there will be blood asking who has the most UFC experience. Probably Carolina, right?
It's actually Luana Carolina, who has about 20 more minutes of cage time, but they both have 7 fights.
Yeah, if Stoliarenko's winning, she's typically getting in and getting out. So, yeah, I like Stoliarenko, but I mean, she always wins fights by first round armbar. So I think, you know, first round sub could be plays to look at. I doubt there'll be good prices, but we'll see. I mean, it's a WMMA fight, so we'll see. The unders kind of interesting, but I kind of feel like if this fight finishes, it's all on Stoliarenko. I don't really see Carolina having much finish upside. Stoliarenko is super tough, but the under, for what it's worth, is plus 120. I kind of like that, but I kind of like it because I'm on the Stoliarenko side.
Yeah, I think the under is a good look too, but yeah, it's not going to be Luana finishing this fight. She's only finished 3 of her 9 career wins, and she's finished 0 of her 4 UFC wins. So she's not like a murderous power puncher. She's not an opportunistic submission grappler. So yeah, all the finish equity is on the Stoliarenko side here.
Yep, agreed. We'll see if Luana Magny can get it done in round 3 again.
That would be something, man. God damn it. I had Magny 3rd round sub. I got greedy, Brady. I got greedy, and it cost me. I wasn't on that 33-1 third round prop. I went 75-1 on the third round sub, got greedy, and it cost me.
Luckily, I sprinkled both 0.15 on the round 3 and then 0.10 on the sub. If Magny subbed him instead of knocked him out, it would have been 15 units just about instead of 5.
Amazing.
But yeah, that would have been crazy. So we'll see if Luana Magny can get it done in the third round. But I think Stoliarenko takes it here. But no point in like playing the money line. Like if she wins, it's probably a finish.
Yeah, I would say so too. I mean, she's won 1 decision, and it was a 5-round decision against Lisa Verzosa in Invicta. So I mean, like Julia's a scrapper, dude. She's mean, she's durable, she's tough. So yeah, I mean, I'm thinking that she wins this fight. I think she's the side. But Luana's tough, man. Don't underestimate Luana Carolina. She's been in there against tough competition. She's got a winning record. She's scrappy in the clinch. She's got pretty good striking. Even that Molly McCann fight, she was starting to take it over there in the third round against Molly, and then she got caught with that spinning elbow, and it was over.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a winnable fight for Carolina. Just can't get armbarred. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see what happens there. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. Very interesting fight here. We got Junyoung Lee going against Blake Bilder. We got Lee, 28 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. Blake Bilder, 5'8", 33 years old with a 68-inch reach. Lee is 5 years younger, 2-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage. Lee is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Had his debut against Yi Zha in the UFC. Won that fight by decision. And then he did have 2 back-to-back road to UFC finishes, both in the first round, one by armbar and then one by knockout. Both those came pretty early. As far as Blake Bilder, this guy's 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He had a Contender Series win against Alex Morgan by first-round submission. He beat Shane Young in his debut. And then he had a fight against Kyle Nelson where he looked completely awful, but you know, I think every Kyle Nelson fight looks awful nowadays, so I don't want to hold that against him too much. And yeah, this is a fight where I actually like Junyoung Lee early on. I think this guy's super dangerous. He has a ton of power, sneaky submission game as well, but it's the big power that I think could pose Bilder some problems. We have seen Bilder get dropped before, not once, not twice, but like a lot of fights. Like you look at all Blake Bilder fights, he's typically getting dropped in the first round, but he's super tough, super durable. You have to kill this guy to get him out of there. And I like that about Blake Bilder. He's never been finished in his entire career. And I'm not sure Junyoung Lee's going to do so, but if he does do it, I think it does come early. But if not, I think Bilder is going to just take over as the fight went on. We saw Junyoung Lee get in the second round against Yi Zha. He didn't look great. You know, he slowed down for sure. And even when the fight was at distance against that Yi Zha guy, you would think in theory he'd have a significant advantage. He didn't really let his hands go. I mean, it was weird. Like you have such a big advantage on the feet. Maybe he was worried about the takedown, but even when the fight was at distance, he didn't really do much in that second and third round. Ended up winning at a split decision. Very close, could win either way, but very unimpressive fight. But yeah, in the first round, this guy's super dangerous. I think as long as Bilder is able to survive these first 5 minutes, I think he's going to start to take over. I think a live bet on Bilder makes a ton of sense because you go back and watch his entire career, he's dropping first rounds like it's his job. So I like Blake Bilder to win like the second, third round, maybe get a late finish, but I'm kind of on the Bilder side. And he's plus money here. You just got to really worry about those first 5 minutes. You got to worry about Blake Bilder sticking in there, taking some big shots and keep going. So give me Bilder here, but not something I'm in love with. But from a live betting perspective, it's something I have my eye on. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think you and I are kind of aligned on how we feel about this fight because Junyoung Lee is extremely dangerous early in fights. You know, you watch the Yi Zha fight, and yeah, it wasn't a great look for him, but Yi Zha just crotch sniffed the entire time, and it was just a very difficult style to deal with. But you know, Lee stopped most of those takedowns, did a really good job of getting back up when he was taken down. But also, you know, I don't think he won that fight, and there was a point in the second round where Zha gets a takedown, gets to half guard, and is in it. Junyoung Lee kicks him in the face when he's down. Murgliata stops the fight. He stands him up to look at Yi Zha, and then he starts the fight on the feet again. And there was probably only about a minute and a half left in the round. Yi Zha had won the round up until that point, and then Junyoung Lee kind of finished that round strong, probably stolen on the judges' scorecards at the end of the round, but he should have been on his back. They punished Yi Zha for getting fouled. So I don't think Jun Yong Lee won that fight. But when you go back before that fight, he beat 7 shades of shit out of Liu Kai, Bin Ji, and Hae-Jin Park. Hae-Jin Park, he knocks out in 10 seconds. And the Ji Bin fight and the Liu Kai fight were both under a minute. Ji Bin gets a takedown on him after Jun Yong Lee hurts him on the feet with a big left hook. And he gets taken down, but then he winds up going for an armbar. Now, Jun Yong Lee is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He does have a tricky submission game in his own right. He's 3-0 to the submission in his pro career, but it's all arm bars. He's like Julija Stoliarenko, and that's how he finishes fights, via the armbar. But man, on the feet, Jun Yong Lee's got a really powerful straight right. He's got a beautiful check left hook and a really nice lead uppercut. So the dude's got really heavy hands. And like you said, we've seen Blake get clipped early in fights. The guy's striking defense isn't phenomenal, you know? So I think Jun Yong Lee by first round knockout, first round submission, even just a first round prop in general, would probably be the best way to play him. But Blake's very durable. And if this fight gets out of the first round, Blake Bilder has a very energy-centric style. He's moving laterally constantly, and his conditioning is phenomenal. If you watch the Regivaldo Carvalho fight and you watch how he comes out in the third, it's like Quarantillo or Jonathan Pierce-esque. He just walks this dude down like a zombie and breaks him right in half with his conditioning, with his pressure, with his output, and his ability to be able to take a shot as well. So the longer this fight goes, if you look at that Yi Jia fight for Jun Yong Lee, man, he was exhausted after that fight ended. So I'm thinking Jun Yong Lee round 1 and Blake Bilder round 3 are going to be things that I'm betting this week. But I do think that if Bilder makes it out of the first round of this fight, I think he's going to win the second and the third. So I'm looking at a live entry on Blake Bilder. I don't mind Blake Bilder's money line at plus money, but I really like Jun Yong Lee round 1, and I like Bilder round 3.
Yeah, I actually bet Bilder round 2, round 3 against Kyle Nelson because that's his style. You know, he gets better as the fight went on. But against Kyle Nelson, like that didn't happen. It was like a Blake Bilder I've never seen before. Like he looked off, but then again, it's because he fought Kyle Nelson. Kyle Nelson just completely ruins fights nowadays. I mean, his fights have been just awful to watch. So, you know, I'm going to chalk up to that. You know, other than that, I think Bilder does, you know, kind of build into the fight, gets better and better as the fight goes on. And I could see him potentially stopping Lee late, but I would like to see Bilder not do what he did in the Kyle Nelson fight, which was nothing. Just like do something would be nice. So yeah, different ways to attack it here. Yeah, I'd like to place money on Bilder because I think for Lee to win, it is a first round finish, and it's going to be tough to finish Bilder. I think he probably drops him. I think Lee could drop him, but finishing him is going to be a tough ask. Let's see where the money line is at. It's a closely lined fight here. We have Jun Yong Lee minus 145, and we have a Bilder plus 125. And it looks like Jun Yong Lee opened up minus 255. And then in terms of the over-under, the over 2.5 is minus 115. The under 2.5 is minus 115. Interesting. Yeah, I think the plus money on Bilder is very, very interesting there.
Yeah, and I kind of like the under too, because Jun Yong Lee is a finisher. He's finished 7 of his 10 wins inside the distance. I believe all 3 wins that he didn't finish inside the distance, 2 of them were 2-round fights, and I believe even one of them might have been a 1-round fight. You know, so and then the Yi Jia fight, you know, it was a stylistic nightmare because Jia just stuck to him like glue for pretty much the whole 15 minutes. So. And I think he lost that fight anyway. So, yeah, I mean, I think Jun Yong Lee's got a lot of finishing equity here. And Blake Bilder's submission game is good. Blake Bilder by sub is probably another bet that I'll be looking to make too, just because he's got some cheeky submission attempts, unusual ones. The armbar that he finished with where he had the reverse triangle as well as the armbar from the top position was a really good look. I think that was the Kane Luger fight. And then the submission against Alex Morgan, really opportunistic, hits him with a straight right behind the ear. And as soon as Morgan moves, he just jumps, gets his back, got him there. And the Buenafuente sub, he was losing every minute of that fight. and then he locks up a triangle with about 30 seconds left in the second round with his head pinned up against the cage. He finished that. And he almost got a Gogo Plata earlier in that round against Buenafuente. He had the shin across the throat and everything. So Blake's got a good submission game too. So I'm leaning his way here, and I'm probably going to have some money on him.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll be betting this fight in some type of way. I'm thinking maybe Blake Bilder. I just like the money line, and then also maybe Blake Bilder late submission props. And if you do like Lee, I think round 1 is his win condition, because if it does reach round 2, he just slows down so much as the fight goes on. You can't slow down against a guy like Bilder. No. So I like it. All right, we'll move on then to a very interesting fight. We got Themba Gorimbo going against Pete Rodriguez. We have Gorimbo. He's 32 years old, 6 foot, with a 76.5-inch reach. Pete Rodriguez, 27 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. Rodriguez, 5 years younger. It's going to be the Gorimbo with a 3-inch height advantage and a 5.5-inch reach advantage. Gorimbo is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against AJ Fletcher, lost that fight by submission, and then he beat Takashi Sato by decision. As far as Pete Rodriguez, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut against Jack Della Maddalena, which, looking back at it, is hilarious. I've never seen such a discrepancy in competition between Jack Della Maddalena and Mike Jackson. Like that is two guys that can't be any further away from each other. But he went out there and he handled Mike Jackson accordingly and won this fight by knockout. This fight confuses me because, I think a lot of people like Themba Gorimbo, and rightfully so. This guy has a really good feel-good story. Kind of came from nothing. He wants to do a lot for his community. Apparently, like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson bought him a house, and we all saw the video. People like this guy. I don't know. I just feel like, he still has a long way to go. He's out there. He's making mistakes. He's submission over position. I don't think he has the best cardio, the best striking, but he's a guy that works hard. He's going to get better. And then on the flip side, it's like Pete Rodriguez is just the one big giant question mark. He's coming up a weight class because he can't make 155. This fight is going to be at 170. I think his last couple fights seems like have been canceled. So hopefully this fight even happens. But Pete Rodriguez obviously extremely undersized for the division at 5'9". And then there's question marks on his wrestling. What does his ground game look like? We haven't really seen it tested much as a pro. As an amateur, we have, but those fights were a while ago. He has been taken down, subbed, all that. But again, he is training at a solid gym, I believe, and then also he probably has made improvements, but we haven't seen those improvements. So I don't know, Weezy. It's a very, very interesting matchup here. In theory, like a striker versus grappler matchup, where on the feet Pete Rodriguez wants to do one thing and one thing only, and that's bang, and that's take your head off. And then Themba Gorimbo's looking to get the fight down on the mat probably within the first 10 seconds. So very, very fun fight here. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think you broke it down perfectly. Gorimbo was supposed to fight Takashi Sato, I think, and Sato had to pull out, so they're bringing in Pete Rodriguez on somewhat short notice, like a couple of weeks' notice for Pete here. And yeah, Gorimbo, he's 33 years old at this point. That's kind of a red flag because he's only got 2 UFC fights. And when you watch the tape, it's just like, damn, dude, this guy is not fighting good competition. And I mean, he's getting dog walked by Henderson Ferreira, who's a journeyman at best. He's the fights that he's winning, he's losing them up until he wins them. I mean, I think Pete Rodriguez is going to knock this dude out in the first round. I think that's what's going to happen. That's going to be something that I'm betting this week for sure. But like you said, Gorimbo is a feel-good story, and it really looks like the UFC wants to get this guy wins. They want to promote MMA as the type of sport that can get people out of horrible situations. I mean, it's heartbreaking hearing about, a young man who has to go to a diamond field to dig for diamonds and then almost gets murdered by the guard dogs that are protecting the field. This guy almost died at the hands of a pack of dogs, when he was just trying to feed his family. So, a guy like Gorimbo is going to fight till the last, ounce of effort that he has. But I don't think that he's particularly talented anywhere the fight goes. His striking is mid at best. His wrestling is pretty good, but when he gets put on his back, man, he's going to stay there. And I think Pete Rodriguez has shown some decent takedown defense in the 9 minutes of tape that we have on him in his career, but he hits so hard. And Themba's so hittable at distance. So I don't like this fight for Themba very much, man. I think Pete Rodriguez is gonna go out there and knock him out in the first round, but we don't know what Pete Rodriguez looks like after round 1, so you kind of got to assume if this gets out of round 1, then Themba's probably going to get takedowns and win minutes and either finish them late or win a decision. But I get it why Themba's the favorite here. He is a feel-good story, but I think the smart money is going to be on Pete Rodriguez to knock this dude out in the first round.
Yeah, we'll see. I like this matchup so much. So the over under is set at 1.5, of course, but the under is -135. I hate it. But yeah, I think somebody does get finished here. But we haven't seen Rodriguez's ground game in so long, though. Like, I did go back and watch his 2 amateur fights where he did lose by submission and decision, and his ground game looked like atrocious, like terrible, awful, really, really bad. But that fight was 2016, so 8 years ago, and then the time he got subbed was 2019, 5 years ago. So you got to think he made improvements, but we haven't seen him yet. I don't know. I think Themba is really live for submission, maybe even down the stretch. But yeah, Pete Rodriguez very live for a knockout, I think. So I don't know how I'm going to play this. I wanted to play violence, but I don't want to play an under at -135. Do they think like Terrence McKinney's fighting or something? But with that said, though, Pete Rodriguez hasn't even been to the second round. So I guess it kind of makes sense.
Yes, 6 fights and an average fight time for Pete of 1.53 minutes. So it's going to be hard to find an economically priced under in this fight.
Oh, yeah.
That is for sure. And you know, and I mean, I get it. It's one of those bets that you kind of, you know, you're just going to have to hold your nose and pay the juice, and it probably cashes.
Probably, but you know, Themba not submitting Takashi Sato kind of haunts me till this day because I got a great price on his sub. And it looked like he was like trying not to sub him. Like it looked like he bet his decision prop. It was ridiculous. Like Takashi was like begging to get subbed, chin up in the air on the ground. It was terrible. So I don't know if I have confidence in Themba submitting Pete before 7.5 minutes is my problem. But yeah, unders is where I'd look for sure, if anything.
And I misspoke. I said he was supposed to fight Takashi Sato. He was supposed to fight Kiefer Crosby. And Crosby had to pull out. He already fought Takashi Sato. So, yeah, it was Crosby that was supposed to be matched up with Garimbo, and now it's Pete Rodriguez. And I see Top Phillips in the chat saying Uncle Weezy probably likes Dinosaur Jr. That dude probably knows me because I've seen Dinosaur Jr. several times. Back in 1999, Brady, almost got my eardrums blown out at the Vic Theater in Chicago, Illinois, when Gumball opened up for Dinosaur Jr., 2 extremely loud noise rock bands. And yeah, even as a young man, I remember telling my buddy Mike that I went to the show with, that is going to change my hearing forever. It was like going to a Motorhead show. So yeah, oh, no. I do like Dinosaur Jr., one of my favorite bands growing up. And yeah, you Top Phillips probably either knows me or that's just a beautiful guess.
Maybe it's a guess. You never know.
You never know.
You never know. All right, so yeah, we'll see. This fight is very, very intriguing to say the least. But yeah, I kind of see what the UFC's trying to do, right? We talk about what the UFC's trying to do. They gave Garimbo Kiefer Crosby, who I'm not even sure why he's even on the roster, and then they're giving him Pete Rodriguez, who people probably aren't too high on. So I see what they're trying to do, but Pete hits hard, and if his take defense holds up, like he's knocking out Garimbo. We'll see if it holds up. Though is the thing. All right, moving on to the next fight, we have Azat Maksum going against Charles Johnson. We got Maksum, who is 28 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. Johnson, 33 years old, 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. We got Azat Maksum. He's 5 years younger, 1-inch height disadvantage, and the same reach there. So Azat, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut against Tyson Nam, and I thought he lost the fight pretty clearly. I didn't really even think it was that close and competitive, but they gave it to the undefeated guy. Tyson Nam went out there, and it was a tough matchup stylistically because Tyson Nam, prior to the Azat fight, had on paper a 100% takedown defense, and after the Azat fight, it's still like 87%. But you know, tough matchup. But Nam, a guy went out there and outlanded him in every single round. In the second round, outlanded him 31-15. In the third round, I outlanded him 31-13. Azat got maybe one takedown in that third round, but I thought Tyson Nam won pretty cleanly, to be honest. It was a split decision, but this is a completely different matchup. I mean, we see what the UFC is doing. They're giving Azat Maksum, undefeated guy, 17-0, Charles Johnson, who I thought was going to get cut. I mean, Charles Johnson lost 3 in a row, but they're giving another shot here. Charles Johnson, what's the big hole in his game? It's the takedown defense. It's the get-up game. Guys can take him down. Guys have taken him down, and there's nothing he can really do about it. Charles Johnson's 33 years old at this point. He's probably not going to be able to fix that. And Azat can wrestle. He hasn't really shown it off in that Nam fight because, like I said, Nam has incredible defensive wrestling. But outside the UFC, this guy can wrestle. This guy can grapple. He can get fights down the mat. His cardio is solid. And if you can wrestle, you can probably beat Charles Johnson at this point. So, yeah, give me Azat here. Not really sure why they're giving Charles Johnson another shot here other than, trying to build this undefeated guy up. So I like Azat quite a bit. Weezy, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, this is another replacement. Azat was supposed to fight Nate Maness here. Maness had to pull out. So now it's another Charles Johnson fight where he's like, yeah, he's raising his hand, taking short notice fights that he should not be taking. And like you said, he's 33 years old. Are we going to see a different version of Charles Johnson? Because, God damn it, the version that we've been seeing, Brady's just not good, man. A guy that has great conditioning, but dog shit output. A guy that knows his opponents are going to wrestle, but can't stop the takedowns. A guy who's a good minute winner, but doesn't really have power. And then he loses a ton of minutes on, in the wrestling exchanges. So even the minutes that he is winning, you're really not seeing any kind of finishing equity out of this guy. Charles needs 5 rounds because Charles has really good conditioning. He's very durable. I don't think the guy's ever been finished in his career, so he's got some really good qualities. His boxing is good. He's constantly switching stances. He's fast. He's athletic, great conditioning, but he's just not particularly dangerous anywhere. And I mean, the Estevam fight was just infuriating. There were 3 times where he stopped takedowns and had the opportunity to disengage with this guy that he wound up clinching up with him again to try to win clinch control minutes and fight his opponent's fights. I think Charles is a guy who could have curated a style earlier in his career that fits his strengths, but he never did that. He never had the fight IQ to figure out, like, I need to be a volume monster because I have better conditioning than these guys. I have better striking than these guys. I need to pressure. I need to get them on the back foot so that they can't wrestle. I got to kick the shit out of their legs so that they can't enter on takedowns. And I just got to be somebody who absolutely breaks my opponents with pressure, pace, and volume. He doesn't do any of that, and he doesn't have power either. And with Maksum, you got a guy who just won a decision that he probably didn't deserve to. So if this fight goes to decision, it's probably Azat who's getting the nod. One of the things that we got to talk about, though, is, Charles has seen 83 takedown attempts against in only 6 fights, Brady. That's absurd. This guy's opponents are attempting 15.65 takedowns per 15 minutes. So it's not surprising when you see him allowing 44% control time to his opponents. That's just the kind of fights that he's been dragged into over and over and over again. And guess what? Azat Maksum is a good wrestler. He's probably going to wrestle Charles Johnson. I mean, all you got to do is watch the tape on this Johnson guy for the coaches to be like, guess what you're doing, Azat? I think you're going to wrestle on Saturday, nephew. And then we always talk about it, fighting on your birthday, that's plus EV. Azat Maksum's birthday is February 2nd. This fight is on the 3rd. So, he's fighting close to his birthday. He's fighting a guy that's 4 years older than him that doesn't do a good job stopping takedowns, that doesn't really have power, and has a really disappointing volume for somebody that should have way more volume on the feet. So I got to go with Azat, and I'll pick him to win by decision.
Yeah, also a disappointing haircut as well, that Charles Johnson character.
Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you want to talk about bad IQ. we've seen plenty of it from Charles Johnson, and you take one look at the old haircut, and you're like, yep, that's not surprising at all. Him and TJ Brown probably have coffee together regularly.
Shout out TJ Brown. Shout out TJ Brown. So yeah, I mean, I like Azat. I like him quite a bit, but minus 200. I don't love that. Charles Johnson plus 170. In terms of like a prop, Azat by decision could be interesting, but he's also a good finisher. It's just Charles Johnson's never been finished. So yeah, I'm with you on the decision, but I don't know. I think I'm probably going to pass. I think the line's about right, minus 200. I don't want to discount Charles Johnson that bad. I mean, I don't think he's that bad. And Moxum's not that proven, right? But, you know, I think it's typically a stylistic matchup that Johnson does struggle with for the most part. So, yeah, I got to go Azat, just not in love with the money line there at minus 200. And then the total, I'm assuming is juiced. It is juiced big time, minus 265 to the over. Holy crap. Under plus 205, which makes sense, but no thank you.
Yeah, it probably hits. It's one of those ones where you're like, damn, that's expensive. And you're like, shit, I'm throwing it in a parlay anyway. That's not, you know, it's probably not hitting. But like you said, dude, Azat hits hard. And I think that's why he won the Nam fight, is that Nam was going to the legs over and over again. And he landed a ton of leg kicks. But when you look at like who was landing the heavier head strikes in that fight, it was actually Azat. But I mean, he was only hitting at a 25% clip at distance, Azat. So, yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I watched that fight the other day, and I'm like, yeah, boy. I think if Azat was 14-3, you know, instead of 17-0 as a pro, that the judges give Nam that nod.
Or if he didn't have a cool name like Azat, like if his name was like Mark.
Mark Maxim.
That's
actually pretty cool.
I actually like that. I like that. But you get what I'm saying. If his name wasn't Azat, I think he would have lost as well.
Yeah, it could be, man. I mean, I actually was saying to myself, that's a pretty cool name, Azat.
Yeah, it's a very cool name. Does he have a cool hat, Azat? I haven't.
Does he? Dude, I didn't see one, but he's Kazakh. He's a Kazakhstani guy. They've got a flair for hats in that country, my man. So, yeah, he probably does have a pretty cool hat collection in the closet that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, those hats have been on fire lately. I can't remember the last time a hat lost a fight, to be honest.
Well, I had a bet on Felipe Bunis, who's got a pretty cool hat, and Josh Van pretty easily disposed of him in the second round.
Does this count as a cool hat?
Not quite, man. I think he could do better than that.
He could do much better than that. That's weak. You know, I might switch my pick now.
That is a nice pool, though. I wouldn't mind being there right about now. That's better than where I'm from. I'm telling you.
Is that his pool, or is he on vacation?
Well, if that's his pool, then he might be soft, because I'd probably be chilling out a lot if I had a pool like that in my crib.
Heck yeah. All right. Sounds good. Okay, we'll move on to the next fight. We have, oh boy, the return. Speaking of somebody I thought was going to get cut, Molly McCann going against Diana Belbiţă. We got Molly McCann, 33 years old, 5'4", with a 62-inch reach. Diana Belbiţă, 27 years old, 5'7", with a 68-inch reach. McCann, 6 years older. McCann, 3-inch height disadvantage and a 6-inch reach disadvantage. Molly McCann is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Decision win against Jiyoung Kim. Knockout wins against Luana Carolina and Hannah Goldie. And then first round submission losses to Erin Blanchfield and Julija Stoliarenko. As far as Diana Belbiţă, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. A submission loss to Luana Jojua. Decision win against Hannah Goldie. Decision loss against Gloria DePaula. Decision win against Maria Oliveira. A decision loss to Karolina Kowalkiewicz by decision. So, yeah, this is the rematch that absolutely nobody asked for besides probably Molly McCann. Probably wanted this one to get back on track. These two fought each other back in 2019, which I'm not the best at math, but what's that, about 4.5 years ago?
Yep.
About 4.5 years ago. Yep. And, yeah, I mean, Molly McCann went out there, and it was actually really close first round. Like, Diana Belbiţă, you could have arguably made a case for her winning the first round. The strikes were very close. Belbiţă landed some really big shots, but in the second round, Molly McCann just beat the crap out of Belbiţă. 10-8'd her. It was you almost finished her on multiple occasions, almost subbed her, and the fight honestly could have been stopped. And, you know, Molly McCann did go out there and look minus 300 or greater in that matchup. But, you know, this is a fight where I believe she is cutting down to strawweight. So, yeah, finally. So on Tapology, they had it at Flyweight for the longest time. Now on Tapology, they finally listed it at Strawweight. And I know that because I know after Molly McCann's last loss to Stoliarenko, she said that she's going to cut down to Strawweight, which, you know, what's that going to help? I'm not sure. But that's something to mention, man. Molly McCann's a -300 favorite. And, you know, did she look -300 in their first matchup? Yes, but that fight was almost 5 years ago, and Molly McCann's cutting down to 115 for, I think, the first time ever. Like, I don't know if I'd be laying -300 on Molly McCann ever, but especially under these circumstances. So yeah, one, I'm just staying far away from. Like, this is borderline 1-800 gambler for me. Molly McCann should go out there, you know, wrestle, get the fight down to the mat, but a lot can change in 5 years. And, you know, I want to see Molly on the scales for sure. -300 is whack. But you have to pick, after watching the fight, you have to pick her to win. I'm just not betting her. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's the same thing for me, you know, because like, in my opinion, you know, I mean, if you want to lay this juice on McCann, please, for the love of Jah, wait to see her on the scale. This could be horrible. It could be a bad look for Molly on the scale. This is the first cut for her down to 115. She's not making that cut before for a reason. So you know, I mean, laying -300 on any female in a UFC fight is a negative EV proposition to start with. And then you've got it, you know, she's the older fighter here. She's 33 years old. You know, making cuts down at 33 years old for the first time, that's a big red flag. You know, this is a sport where you really need to be at your best physically and mentally on fight day. And, you know, Belbiţă, who's been back and forth between 115 and 125, she's been making that cut down to 115 and looking fine doing it for a few fights now. So I really do think that Diana being 6 years younger, 3 inches taller, having a 6-inch reach advantage here, and potentially, Brady, what if her wrestling is improved? Yeah, that's another thing here. You know, I mean, what if Molly does have a really rough weight cut? What if she is compromised? What if in the second round, she doesn't have the kind of energy that she typically has because she doesn't have to make that cut? You know, the pressure of Molly, the really good boxing, that's something that she should be the favorite in this fight. She's always had a 6-inch reach disadvantage. Who cares? She's been at, you know, she's 6-5 in the UFC. She's never been at a reach advantage in any of those fights. So she's used to being the one that has to close the distance. And guess what? Molly has a really great style for dealing with her physical limitations. If you've got T-Rex arms, pressure forward. Count on your durability, walk forward, close that distance, throw heavy hooks. Man, you know, physics will tell you, man, like the longer arm doesn't get more powerful as it goes out from the chest. It's the shorter arm going shorter distance that's going to be more powerful. So Molly's a powerful striker, 68.5 distance striking defense. That's way above average. 47.5% accuracy. She flashes power. She throws 3.5 less significant strike attempts per minute at distance than her opponents do, but she outlands her opponents by 1.54. So if you look at those metrics for Molly at distance striking range against flyweights, they're very, very good. It's just that she can lose a ton of minutes on the ground. And the weight cut at 33, that's also a major concern. I mean, I kind of think at this point it's dog or pass on this particular fight because we could be seeing massive improvements from Diana Belbiţă from the last time that they fought. You know, Diana was 23 years old the last time they fought, and Molly was in her prime at 29. So this rematch could look a lot different this time around.
As we always say, no two fights look the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes they do, you know, I mean, like sometimes it's just like, oh shit, you know, Magomed Ankalaev versus Ion Kudalaba, you know, he waxed his ass both times in the first round, but so many times, Brady, you know, I think it's lazy to say, okay, let's just watch that first fight. How did it go? Okay, that's how it's going to go this time. You know, that's like, you know, if football, you see it a lot, you know, where you're like one week, a team looks like a world beater on offense. And then the very next week, you know, they can't get anything going. And you're like, why does this only happen to me? And it's no, the coaches are watching what you're doing. They know what your strengths are. They know what your weaknesses are. They're trying to make you play to your weaknesses. So, yeah, be careful laying the juice on Molly here. I see why people think she's going to do it, but I would wait. If your read is, oh, I think Molly really just runs through her, just wait until weigh-ins. You're not going to pay much more than you're already paying. I mean, I think the money comes in on Belbiţă at this point.
Yeah, minus 300. I thought that was kind of crazy. Joel saying the over 2.5 should be in a parlay. I don't know, man. I mean, the over kind of scares me. Yes, Molly McCann fights, not recently at all, but, typically Molly McCann fights do go over. The over 2.5 is minus 295. Like, McCann was, like, this close to finishing Belbiţă last time, and with her cutting down to 115 for the first time ever, I don't know if I like the over here. And Molly McCann's last 4 fights have actually finished. So I don't know. I don't really like anything in this fight, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, what would be sweet is if Molly's just minus 300 all week and then she pulls a Stoliarenko on the scale and you're like, all right, plus 240 on Belbiţă for 1 unit, but that's probably the only way I'm touching this one with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah. I don't think I'm touching this one for sure, but I'll be curious to see what Molly does look like on the scale.
Yep, me too. I think that's a great piece of information to have before you make any decisions on this fight.
Sounds good. But the best decision would be probably not betting it, but I know we all like betting every fight, so we'll see. All right. Moving on, we got Gilbert Urbina going against Charles Radtke. We got Urbina, 27 years old, 6'3" with a 75-inch reach. Radtke, 33 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. Urbina 6 years younger. Urbina 5-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. Gilbert Urbina 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Brian Battle, lost that fight by 2nd round sub, and then it did beat Orion Kosi by knockout in the 2nd round his last time out. As far as Charles Radtke, 5-0 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Blood Diamond, won that fight by decision. It was a terrible performance, but he ended up going out there and getting the win. Yeah, I think this is a fight where I think there's some recency bias here, man. I mean, Gilbert Urbina looked incredible in his last fight. It was the best he's ever looked. Looked like he turned a corner, but did he look incredible because, he made a ton of improvements? Maybe he did, or did he look incredible because he fought Orion Kosi? And, I don't often change my picks. I think I've been doing predictions for like 6 years. I think I've changed my pick either 2 or 3 times. And this was one of the times I actually changed my pick. Earlier in the week, I picked Orion Kosi to beat Urbina. And then throughout the week, in every single interview, Orion Kosi's like talking about he basically shouldn't be fighting. He almost retired. He has some of the worst health issues you could ever imagine. And it's like, why are you fighting, dude? And then he shows up on weigh-in day. He misses weight. He looks terrible. And I'm like, okay, I'm changing my pick. I not only changed my pick, I ended up betting the under and Urbina inside the distance. Orion Kosi probably shouldn't have been fighting. And I think he even retired after that fight as well. So did Urbina turn a corner, or was he fighting a guy that probably should have been in the hospital? I don't know, but you had a good win nonetheless. But my goodness, Charles Radtke's good, dude. Charles Radtke's really good. His striking's really good, has a lot of power. He fought in a CFFC, which is an incredible promotion, and he's been there for a while. Was the champion, beat Raheem Forrest by 1st round submission. I think people might be a little bit low on Charles Radtke after that Blood Diamond win, which, yeah, I mean, it was a terrible fight. It was probably the worst fight of the card, arguably one of the worst fights of the year. It was awful, but went out there and got the win nonetheless. Urbina seems kind of like a front runner to me. There's a lot of fights where he's looking really good in the 1st round, and he just slows down a lot as the fight goes on. The Battle fight was one of those fights. Even in the Kosi fight, in the 2nd round, he wasn't throwing a ton. And I had the under in that fight. I had Urbina inside the distance, and I was getting kind of worried because Urbina looked like he might have blew his load. Luckily, he had a front kick to the stomach and knocked him out. But yeah, I kind of feel like Urbina's a little bit of a front runner here. I think it's a close fight. I really do. I feel like Urbina's a little bit chinny. I feel like he doesn't have the best cardio, and I feel like Radtke's very live to pull off the upset here. So this line doesn't make a ton of sense to me, other than people might be a little bit higher on Urbina than they should be, and people are really low on Charles Radtke. I think people hate the guy after his interview where he basically used some slurs and told the crowd to basically shut up. But yeah, give me Radtke here as a pretty big dog. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, man. So in defense of Charles Radtke, I mean, he went all the way to Australia for a UFC debut against, Blood Diamond, who's local. And he fought a very boring fight, but what you also have to say is that he fought an extremely smart fight. Yeah. He didn't let Blood Diamond do any of the things that he does well. He put his back up against the cage and he bullied him. He won a ton of minutes in control time there. 64% control time for, 2% control time allowed. It was just basically like a sixth grader who beats up a first grader. You ever see somebody just put their hand out and then put their hand right on your forehead, and then the little person's trying to run at them, but they can't because you're just keeping their forehead? I mean, like, that's basically what he did. He just big brothered Mike Mathetha in front of his home crowd for 3 rounds and won a decision that he should have won. But making your UFC debut in front of a hostile crowd after a 20-some-odd hour flight to Australia, that's impressive, no matter how you get it done. Also with Radtke, this guy's got a ton of power on the feet. He's got a really good Brazilian jiu-jitsu game, and he's durable too. He's a very durable guy. This line is hilarious to me, Brady. I mean, why is Gilbert Urbina minus 210 here? What have we seen in the cage from Gilbert Urbina that would lead you to believe that he should be nearly 70% implied to beat Charles Radtke, a guy who's more experienced than him, a guy who's been around longer than him, a guy who's finishing at a higher rate than him, a guy who's been more durable than him? You know, Urbina got a win over Michael Gilmore in the Tough House.
Oh,
you know, I mean, who cares, right? You know, he got a win over Orion Kosi, who, like, I remember you were sending me like those interviews and like sending me quotes from the interviews. And I just remember being like, holy shit, dude, I'm betting Urbina, you know? And I remember you changed your pick, but I was betting Kosi because I'm like, dude, Kosi's going to out wrestle this dude, you know? Just like we saw Battle like get out wrestled for a little bit and then be like, all right, no, I'm going to take you out. It was the same thing. So, you know, I really do feel like this is going to be a good spot for Radtke. I bet 1 unit on him at plus 180 on Caesars Sportsbook here. It's just a really wide line. And I think Charles is at a great camp over at Valley Flow Striking. Before that, you know, he was training in South Florida. So he's had really good training partners his entire career. But over there at Valley Flow, Chicago, stand up, Mike Valley, stand up. That's a really good camp. I think he's going to be ready. Gilbert Urbina, I'm not even sure where he's training. It still says BMF Ranch. I mean, if you're training with Cerrone, I mean, does that do? I mean, they got to do anything but drink Budweiser at this point, you know? So I don't know what's going on where Gilbert's training, but yeah, I think this is going to be a close fight, dude. I mean, Gilbert's younger, he's taller, he's longer, he's from a fighting family. He looks good in there. I think he's a good prospect, and he could be making big improvements. You know, you can't teach size, you can't teach length, and he's got 2 older brothers who probably beat the shit out of him his entire life. Now that he gets to fight people his own age and his own size, he's probably pretty happy with that, you know? So, I mean, it's going to be a great fight, a great scrap, but I think Radtke is underrated in terms of how versatile he is. And, you know, we've seen him win fights with his grappling. We've seen him win fights with his power and his striking. But in his UFC debut, we saw him actually win a fight with his clinch game as well. This guy's got multiple paths, and I think he's going to have the better conditioning and the better durability in this spot. So this plus 180 is silly to me. I had to jump on it, and I might even add on.
Yeah, I think Charles Radtke is a lot better than what he showed in the Blood Diamond fight. And I think people are pretty mad. I bet everybody bet the sub prop in the Radtke Blood Diamond fight, which makes sense. I actually bet the sub / decision at even money, so ended up cashing that. But yeah, I think we all expected Radtke to go out there and sub Blood Diamond. It didn't happen, but I think Blood Diamond's take on defense and get-up game actually looked a lot improved for what it's worth. But yeah, in terms of this fight, Radtke's plus 173, Urbina's minus 203. The over-under set at 2.5, the over 2.5 plus 100, the under 2.5 is minus 130. I think the under might hit here. Radtke has a ton of power. I kind of lean knockout here. And if Urbina wins, like I said, this guy's kind of front-loaded. I think he's very dangerous early on. But I'm not touching the total here. I'm kind of more interested in the money line with you. I don't see plus 180 anymore. So you beat some line movement there. Looks like best price I see is like plus 173, which is not bad. I like it.
I think it's still plus 180 on Caesars. Let me refresh the page here. Right. Where is it? Urbina. Yeah, you could still get Radtke plus 180 on Caesars. That's where I bet him.
Okay.
I don't think that number is going to be there for long.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me, so I like it. Any thoughts on the total, or are you just not touching it?
I think that this one probably goes under, dude. I think this is going to be a scrap. Both these guys are really dangerous, really good grapplers. I think both of them have a lot of power. I think Radtke's going to knock out Urbina, though, in the second round. Urbina is super hittable, Joel S. said in the chat, and I couldn't agree more, dude. Tresean Gore
I was going to say, yeah.
With everything that he threw, he was just snapping back Urbina's head. And I mean, like, if you're getting hit by Chuck Radtke at 170, I think he's going to get knocked out. So, yeah, I love this spot here at plus 180. That line is silly to me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple dogs sticking out on the card for me. This is definitely one of them. So we'll see. All right. So we'll move on to the next fight. We have Khizriev making an appearance. We'll get to see him fight again in 2027 after this one, but he's finally fighting after a very long layoff, and he's taking on Makhmud Muradov. We got Khizriev, 33 years old, 5'9" with a 74-inch reach. Muradov, 33 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. Same age. We got Muradov with a 5-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Khizriev is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut against Denis Tuoluen, won that fight by second-round submission. And he also won by first-round submission on the Contender Series as well. As far as Makhmud Muradov, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He had a knockout win against Trevor Smith, knockout win against Andrew Sanchez, submission loss to Gerald Meerschaert, decision loss to Kyle Bahayo, and then a decision win against Brian Barberena. So very good fight here. We have a striker versus grappler matchup where Khizriev's going to look to get the fight down to the mat. And this is typically a matchup that Muradov does struggle with or has struggled with in the past. Muradov has like 5 submission losses. It's a ton. We even saw Kyle Bahayo get into some dominant positions on the mat. So, yeah, I think there may be a little bit of a hole in Muradov's ground game. I think he has improved a little bit. But, yeah, Khizriev, I think this guy's really good. He doesn't fight often at all. I think he has like 3 fights in the last 6 years. But when he does fight, he's really good. I went back and watched a good amount of his fights, and I was very impressed. So, like, the one knock on him is he never shows up. And after he does beat Muradov here, we're probably not going to see him until like 2030. But yeah, he's good. He can wrestle. He can grapple. He's very dangerous. When he does fight every so often, he typically wins very early as well. He's a good fighter, really good fighter. So yeah, I think it's a good matchup for him. I like him to take down Muradov and probably give Muradov his 5th or 6th submission loss here. If Muradov is able to stuff the takedowns, you know, he probably wins. It's just that's a big if. I mean, Khizriev's wrestling's no joke. So yeah, I like Khizriev here and Khizriev by sub. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, where the hell is Ali Khizriev been? What is this guy? What is this guy doing with his life? He's fought twice since April of 2018. April of 2018 on. This guy has 2 fights, and I think that those fights have lasted, I think, a grand total of 8 minutes, 8 or 9 minutes of cage time in the last 6 years. It's ridiculous. I don't know. Does he get lost in the mountains of Dagestan between each fight and for like a year and a half, and then they finally get a rescue party out there to find out where the hell Ali is? I don't know what this guy is waiting for. He's literally pissed away the 6 best years of a fighter's life between 27 and 33 years old. This guy hasn't shown up but twice to fight. So I don't know what the hell is going on with Ali Khizriev. Second of all, this guy's a welterweight who's fighting up a weight class at middleweight. Why? I don't know. Dude, is this guy just lazy? Is that why he only shows up to fight once every 3 years? Is he just horribly lazy and he doesn't feel like cutting weight and he doesn't feel like showing up to fight? Is he independently wealthy? Does he own his own business? Because a fighter not showing up to fight for 6 years only twice, you know, is very, very concerning to me. It's either a ton of injuries or just a lack of interest in actually showing up to fight. But when this guy shows up, it's amazing. He's phenomenal. His conditioning is excellent. His striking is super aggressive and powerful. His wrestling is really high percentage, really efficient. And when he gets down to the ground, his ground and pound is phenomenal. And every single finish is a rear naked choke. I mean, he is just so clinical wherever the fight goes. This guy is an absolute stud, but I'm just furious because this guy should have fought. You know how many times Makhmud Muradov has fought since April of 2018, Brady? 12 times. 12 times, while Ali has only done it twice. And I believe Muradov has had 7 or 8 fights canceled. You know, I mean, like, some people's careers don't even last 6 years in this sport. You know, so it's just really weird. Here he is. He's a fat middleweight who hasn't shown up in 3. And you know what? It's really even weirder is he beat Shikimoto in like less than a minute. And then he doesn't show up for 2 years to fight Dennis Tialulin? Why? You could have fought next week. He doesn't even cut weight. He's showing up at 185 pounds with a spare tire. I mean, I think Ali should absolutely murder Makhmud. But am I going to lay the juice on a guy that I just think has got way more questions than answers at this point? I think I'm just going to sit back and watch this because this is a high-level fight. I like Muradov, too. He's really fun to watch strike. He's got beautiful footwork, great lateral movement. He's a sniper on the outside, very aggressive, really good defensively. He is a solid grappler as well. It's just that if he gets put into bad spots on his back, you know, he winds up getting subbed. And, I mean, Khizriev is just an absolute master on the ground. I mean, I guess how Muradov wins this fight is he either lands something huge on the feet or Ali is just, his heart isn't in it anymore, or there's just a ton of injuries. I don't know why this guy doesn't fight, but it's pretty infuriating because he's one of the most talented people that I've seen step into the cage, and I'd like to see him fight 3 times a year and make a run at the middleweight division or the welterweight division, whatever weight he feels like fighting at. Aliaskhab, Khizriev, for the love of Allah, please start showing up and fighting more often. You're really, really good at it.
He is. And to his credit, I mean, he has had 5 canceled bouts in 2021. Believe it or not, 3 of them weren't really his fault. Wellington Turman withdrew. The Kyle Dawkins event was canceled due to COVID. So there was that. Abus Magomedov pulled out. So those 3 were not his fault. But he pulled out against Alessio Di Chirico, and then he also pulled out against Jacob Malkoun.
Okay. But still, I mean, why are there not more fights booked? I mean, like, Muradov has had more fights canceled since COVID started than Khizriev had. But still, somehow Makhmud managed to get his ass into a cage 12 different times in that period when Ali only managed to do it twice. So, I mean, I don't know what the fuck he's waiting for.
I don't know.
You know, I mean, if you were interested in fighting, all you got to do is pick up your phone, call your manager, and say, "Give me a fucking fight." These guys have got 600 people on the roster.
You would think. I mean, I don't know what his deal is, man. But you know, I was very impressed with what I saw when he does actually fight. So we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see if this fight even happens. We'll see if he even makes it to the Apex. We'll see. All right, I hope so. So Khizriev -180, Muradov +155, the over -190. That's over 1.5. The under 1.5 is +160. Yeah, I like Khizriev, and Khizriev by sub potentially is kind of what I'm going to be looking at. But we'll see if this fight even happens. Like, we might have just wasted 10 minutes talking about it.
Yeah, and Muradov 8 professional losses, 4 of them by sub. So yeah, I mean, Khizriev by sub is a good look this week for sure.
Absolutely. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. We got Viviane Araújo going against Natália Silva. We got Araújo, 37 years old, 5'4", with a 68-inch reach. Silva, 26 years old, 5'4", with a 65-inch reach. Silva's 11 years younger, same height, and then it's going to be Araújo with a 3-inch reach advantage. Araújo is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. Decision loss against Caitlin Chukagian, decision win against Andrea Lee, decision loss against Alexa Grasso and Amanda Ribas, and then a decision win against Jennifer Maia. As far as Natália Silva, she is 5-0 in her last 5 fights. Made her debut against Jasmine Jazz Vicious, won that fight by decision. knocked out Teresa Bleda, knocked out Victoria Leonardo, and then beat Andrea Lee by decision. So yeah, massive step up in competition here for Natália Silva. Some decent win, like Jasmine Jazz the Vicious, that's a good win. Andrea Lee's a good win. Leonardo and Bleda, those are pretty bad wins. But yeah, if she's able to beat Araújo, that's going to be a really good win. I think Araújo is a very good fighter. She's fought, you know, some of the best fighters in the division. She's been in, you know, main event with Alexa Grasso. The problem with Araújo has always really been like her cardio. She does slow down as the fight goes on. Most notably was that Caitlin Chukagian fight, where I actually thought she potentially won that fight, but she slowed down massively as the fight went on. She slowed down in the Hibas fight, slowed down in the Grasso fight. She just doesn't have the best cardio. And at 37 years old, at this point, I don't think that's going to change. Natália Silva, I think, is the future. She's only 26 years old, but she's also like a minus 300 something favorite. So I think she gets it done. Maybe the first round's competitive, but I think as this fight goes on, Araújo is going to slow down, going to tire. And I think Silva wins this fight, wins in the second and third round, and probably wins the decision. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, this is Natália Silva is a phenomenal prospect. Still 27 years old at this point. Oh, and by the way, fighting on her birthday, Brady.
Ooh,
so maybe that's why she's so juiced up at this point. You know, February 3rd is her birthday. She'll be 27 years old on that day. Vivi still will be 10 years older than her when they're fighting. So, yeah, Silva's looked phenomenal. I mean, you look at those distance striking numbers, just a block of green there, 6.69 distance strikes landed per minute spent at distance and only 2.79 absorbed. Positive 3.9 distance striking differential with 48% accuracy and almost 68% distance striking defense. Those are phenomenal numbers to go along with 93% takedown defense. And that's having fought Teresa Bleda and Jasmine Jazz the Vicious, two phenomenal grapplers that sell out for it. So what we've seen thus far from Natália Silva has been nothing short of impressive. And this is a step up in competition against Vivi. Vivi's very good. Vivi's a great grappler in her own right. She's a very powerful striker. She's dangerous early in fights. She's got a ton of power. So I could see Vivi making this close. You know, I mean, I think that this could wind up being a close fight. But Natália Silva is a girl that's obviously going to be marketed heavily by the UFC. She's very marketable. She's a really good fighter. She's a fantastic looking young lady too, with a great smile and a great personality. So I really kind of feel like Silva's got it all, and this is the kind of athlete that they're going to be looking to push. It's the kind of athlete that the fan base of the UFC is going to flock behind and root for. So big line though. It's a big line. I can't get in the habit of laying this kind of juice on female fighters. I made the ass shaving of the week last week, Mayra Bueno Silva. I'm just done, dude. I'm done being confident about women's fights. You know, the only thing I can be confident of is that I'm probably going to be surprised by the result most of the time. And this one could wind up being no different. You know, I mean, it's a different stylistic matchup, but the win over Andrea Lee was impressive, you know, and I think Vivi is similar to Andrea in a lot of ways. So, you know, I'm thinking Silva gets this job done. She probably gets it done by decision. Vivi, very durable, no quit in her. So maybe we can get a better price at Silva by decision than we can on the money line, but it's probably how it plays out.
Yeah, Silva decision, I think so. I think it could be a competitive early, but I don't trust Vivi's cardio, especially at 37. Something to mention, though, I mean, Natália Silva was plus 220 against Jazz the Vicious. She was minus 160 against Bleda. She was minus 325 against Lee. This is going to be, she was minus 900 against Victoria Leonardo, but yeah, she's minus 350 here. And this is by far her toughest test, in my opinion, but I'm not taking Vivi. Give me Silva, just absolutely no interest in betting this fight. She's minus 350. The over, I'm guessing, is completely juiced, and it is. The over is minus 300. Yeah, Silva by decision as far as a pick, but I'm not touching it at all.
Yeah, me neither, man. I don't think I can get to it unless they just give us a bonkers number on Silva by decision, and you can count on Vivi's cardio, who in 10 UFC fights has never been finished in the UFC. And you look at the names that she's fighting, you know,
Oh, yeah.
Maya, Hibas, Grasso, Lee, you know, so definitely some tough opponents, and she's got no quit in her. So yeah, Silva by decision probably the way, but I don't think we're going to get a good price on it.
Yeah, I doubt it. But we'll see. We'll see what they come up with. I'm guessing they probably open up -150, which, by the way, when we called the Evloev, we were like, they're going to open up at -150, and they did. They did.
Yeah, they did. They did. And Evloev won by decision. What a surprise!
what a surprise.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move on to the next fight. We have 3 fights left. All right, so we got a fight we already talked about before: Randy Brown, Muslim Salikhov. Randy Brown, 33 years old, 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. Salikhov, 39 years old, 5'11" with a 70-inch reach. Brown, 6 years younger. Brown, 4-inch height advantage and an 8-inch reach advantage. Brown 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Decision wins against Jared Gooden, Chaos Williams, Francisco Trinaldo. Submission loss to Jack Della Maddalena, and then a decision win against Wellington Turman. As far as Salikhov, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Zaleski dos Santos. Decision win against Trinaldo. Knockout loss to the Leech, knockout win against Fiallo, and then decision loss to Nicholas Dalby. So yeah, we touched on this fight a couple months ago. I think Randy Brown actually was the one to pull out. So they're running it back here, and yeah, nothing's really changed. Brown's 6 years younger. He's going to have a massive height advantage, a massive reach advantage, a massive volume advantage, a grappling advantage. A lot of advantages here for Randy Brown. I like him to win this fight. I like him to even potentially finish this fight as well. I think a club and sub could be on the table. But yeah, give me Brown here. Nothing's really changed. I'm not sure why he did pull out, though. I'm not sure what happened, whether it was an injury or a weight cutting issue. But I like him to get this job done against the 39-year-old. He says he's 39 in Salikhov, but in reality, he's like 60. I mean, this guy's not 39. I highly disagree with that. But Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, dude, Muslim is old. Like, you look at that Tapology picture, Monk, when we did the Pub Sports Radio DFS show, Monk said it looked like that picture was taken by somebody underneath a black velvet cloth. You know, like it's just so it's just black. What year was that taken? You know, was that the year that boxing gloves were invented?
And he still looks 40 there. Like, he looks 40 in that, and it was taken like 40 years ago.
I mean, I think Rocky Marciano is like right behind him, waiting to have his picture taken. You know, it's so funny, but like at the same time, right? You know what this is going to be? This is going to be a kickboxing match because Randy Brown never takes anybody down ever. You know, he's got 9 takedowns in 16 UFC fights. Muslim Salikhov's fights have taken place at distance striking range, 80% of his UFC cage time. And, you know, he's also another guy that really doesn't wrestle. So the king of Kung Fu versus a good striker and Randy Brown, I think this is going to be a close fight, you know, but I just worry that the 52-year-old Muslim Salikhov, you know, you're starting to get the idea that maybe he might be starting to fade, you know, like it might be getting towards the end of his career. Father Time is undefeated, and Randy Brown's 6 years younger than this guy, has an 8-inch reach advantage and a 4-inch height advantage, and he's got great kicks in his own right that he can maintain distance with. So, you know, I mean, I think Randy Brown probably wins this fight, but dude, I mean, like -230 on the money line for a guy like Brown, I think that's very expensive, and I think that my stylistic read is that this is going to be a kickboxing match. And even though Brown throws more volume, I think his volume is going to be slowed down by the really good defense and the really crisp and accurate counter striking of Muslim Salikhov. So, you know, I'm probably going to entirely stay away from this fight because I just don't have a very good feel for it. I think Brown wins it, but I think the price is entirely too high.
Yeah, I'll never bet on Brown again as a big favorite because I bet on him as a big favorite against Trinaldo, and it's like he almost lost that fight. It was terrible. It was a horrible feeling. And then against Turman, I bet him as well, and that fight was a lot closer than I expected also. So yeah, it's tough to lay this price tag on Randy Brown, but he's going against an 80-year-old, so I think he'll be all right here. But let's see where he's at. He is currently -230. Yeah, that kind of worries me. I kind of question the durability a bit of Brown, and Salikhov, when he does actually throw strikes, which it isn't often, but when he does throw and land, he does hit very hard. So that's kind of a concern.
Yeah, I mean, he's got as many knockdowns in 9 fights as Randy Brown has in 16. I think, well, actually, I think Brown's got 4 knockdowns in 16 fights. Salikhov's got 3 in 9 fights. You know, he's landing a knockdown on over 1% of his distance strikes, while it's 0.74 for Brown. You can't count on Brown to grapple, and they both have positive, significant striking differentials, but Muslim's more accurate, and Muslim's 10% more defensively responsible as well. So, yeah, I think that this is close.
Could be. Could be. We'll see. All right. 2 fights left. We have Renato Moicano going against Drew Dober. We got Moicano, 34 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. Drew Dober, 35 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. Moicano 1 year younger. Moicano 3-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. We got Moicano, who is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Knockout loss against Rafael Fiziev. A submission win against Jai Herbert and Alexander Hernandez. A decision loss against RDA. And then a submission win against Brad Riddell. As far as Drew Dober, he's a 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Knockout wins against Terrence McKinney, Rafael Alves, and Bobby Green. Knockout loss to Matt Frivola, and then a knockout win against Ricky Glenn. I mean, this is about as striker versus grappler matchup as you're going to get. It'd be very wise for Moicano to go out there and take this fight down to the mat. I mean, that's kind of the style that Drew Dober struggled with mostly in the UFC. He's been submitted, I think, 4 times. Like, it's a ton in the UFC, Drew Dober. Doesn't have the best takedown defense, and Moicano's ground game is elite. But, you know, Moicano has kind of fell in love with his hands a little bit lately. He's going out there and striking a lot more, which is fine. He's a really good striker, very dangerous. It's just you probably don't want to do that here against Drew Dober. So I think it comes down to the kind of the game plan of Moicano. We haven't seen him fight in a very long time, so I'm glad to see him back. And I think this is a great job, you know, from the matchmakers here to put these two together, because on the feet, both guys can hurt each other. And then on the mat, Moicano's no joke. So I think this one, yeah, I kind of lean Moicano just because I feel like the path is there. And if he does get it down to the mat, I feel like he can make it look pretty easy. But I also think that Dober can take his head off. Like, that's definitely on the table. We've seen Moicano knocked out multiple times. He should have even been stopped in the RDA fight. So I think both guys kind of have a path here. I kind of see it being Moicano sub or Dober KO. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this main or co-main event? It kind of feels like the main event to me, but yeah, the co-main event here.
This is a great fight. And, you know, yeah, like you said, striker versus grappler. I think while this is on the feet, Drew is going to be incredibly dangerous. While this thing is on the mat, Moicano is going to be incredibly dangerous. Somebody probably gets finished here. Moicano finished in 4 of 5 UFC losses. Dober finished in 5 of 8 UFC losses. And it should be 5 of 5 losses where Moicano got finished. I don't know what Goddard was doing in that fight, but he nearly got the man killed. And Dober's a guy who gets submitted a lot, 4 submission losses in the UFC. And we know that that's how Moicano gets the job done. Moicano's 10 wins and 1 loss to the submission in his pro career. So Moicano's got to get this thing down to the ground. He's going to try to get to Drew Dober's back and finish with the rear naked choke. Drew Dober is going to try to stop the takedown attempts of Renato, keep it at range, land the big shot on the feet. Fight doesn't go to decisions, probably going to be somewhere around -400, -500 for this fight. So I don't know if we're going to really get to play it, but I think the fight definitely finishes inside the distance. Moicano by sub, Drew Dober by knockout. I don't know who I'm going with because, like, I like Moicano's wrestling. I just wish he would go to it more. You know, the fact that Moicano has only attempted 30 takedowns in 14 UFC fights is troubling. That's troubling against Drew Dober. I want to see a guy that's out there shooting 10 takedowns per fight against a guy like Dober who hits as hard as he does. 1.46% of the distance strikes that this guy lands results in a knockdown. That is a very impressive number. That's 9 knockdowns in 22 fights. 9 knockouts. 9 knockouts in the UFC for Drew Dober, and we've seen Moicano knocked out in 3 of his 5 losses. So fight doesn't go to decision, probably a parlay piece this week, and a really high-level fight that I kind of feel like is an absolute coin flip. I would probably be willing to lay the juice on Moicano at -140 if I felt like he was a more active wrestler. But he does tend to fall in love with his hands just a little bit. He's fallen in love with the box before Brady. We've seen him kind of come out of that more recently against Riddell, against Jai Herbert, against Alexander Hernandez. But he better wrestle here if he wants to win this fight.
Yeah, fell in love with the box. He can't do that. He can't do that here.
Not against Drew Dober, man. That dude has got bricks for hands and he's got a brick for a head. So you're not ever knocking him out, you know?
Yep, unless you're Matt Favola, which still makes no sense to me, but
no sense.
Nope. All right, so Moicano minus 145, Dober plus 125, the over-under set at 1.5, the under 1.5 minus 125. Yeah, violence is a good way to attack it. Don't love the over at or the under at 1.5, but I think this does finish at some point. I'm not sure when though. Any thoughts on the total?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do go under 1.5 here. I think either Moicano gets the back or Drew Dober finds the knockout shot here. But 1.5 is always, these guys are both really good, so that's always tricky trying to get that finish in under 7.5 minutes. So, man, I think this is right about where it should be on the line. It's a really high level fight, and it's going to be a great co-main event for this card.
Yeah, let's see. So Moicano subbed Riddell in the first round, subbed Hernandez under 1.5. He subbed Jai Herbert over 2.5. He got knocked out by Khizriev in the first round. Submitted Damir Hadzovic under 1.5. So yeah, a lot of these Moicano fights are finishing in the first round or under. He got knocked out by the Korean Zombie in the first round. Got knocked out by Jose Aldo under 1.5. So yeah, a lot of these Moicano fights finishing under 1.5. As far as Dober, finished Ricky Glenn. I mean, that fight shouldn't be sanctioned, but he finished him in the first round for what it's worth. Got finished by Favola in the first round. The Bobby Green fight just went over. Alves fight went over. McKenny fight went under. And then the Riddell fight, Islam fight, and Hernandez fight went over. So it's kind of like up and down. I could go either way. I think pick him 1.5 is correct, but might be looking at like an alternative 2.5. But yeah, I'm very confident this fight does finish one way or another. These guys, I think it's like 9 of Dober's last 10 have finished, and then 8 of Moicano's last 10 have finished. And that RDA fight should have been stopped on so many different times.
Yeah, the prop template's telling me that 44% of their combined 34 fights have finished under 1.5 rounds at the UFC level. So 15 of 34, or 44%. And right now we're paying minus 120, which is about 54% on the line. But like you said, last 5 fights for Dober, all finishes. Last 4 of 5 fights from Moicano are finishes, and the Dos Anjos one should have been. So they're definitely trending towards violence recently.
Yep, and rightfully so. This fight's awesome. I can't wait for this one.
Yeah, and we haven't seen Moicano in about a year and 2 months though. So I mean, I know that there's some injury concerns there with him, but he's over at ATT. He's at a top camp. So and both of these guys are Elevation Fight Team versus AT&T. Can't wait for this one.
I'm surprised it's only a year and 2. It feels like so much longer. I think it's just because we miss him so much, Moicano. But it
yeah, man,
like longer.
we got the YouTube channel we can enjoy in between fights.
There we go. Maybe he's been busy with that, so maybe we'll see him. But yeah, looking forward to the return of Moicano. This matchup's awesome. All right, now we have the main event. Before we get into it, if you guys have not already, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. I know a lot of you guys are watching football. Apparently, the Lions were crushing the 49ers. And then all of a sudden, I checked the score, and it's like a tie game. So really good game, apparently, right now. So shout out to everybody hanging out with us live. Shout out to everybody watching on the replay. And a shout out to the Pub Sports Radio Pick'ems contest. Don't forget to enter your entries. Free to enter, $100 to first, as always. All right, main event here, 5 rounds. Roman Dolidze going against Nassourdine Imavov. We will start with Dolidze, who's 35 years old, 6'2" with a 76-inch reach. Imavov is 28 years old, 6'3" with a 75-inch reach. Imavov 7 years younger, 1-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Dolidze 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Laureano Staropoli. Knockout win against Kyle Dawkins, Phil Hawes, and Jack Hermanson. And then a decision loss to Marvin Vittori. As far as Imavov, he is 3-1 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Ian Heinisch. Knockout win against Edmund Shabazian. Decision win against Joaquin Buckley. Decision loss against Sean Strickland, then the no contest against Chris Curtis in a fight he was on his way to winning there. So yeah, I kind of see this fight as like a minute winner versus moment winner type fight. I feel like this could look a little bit like, Dolidze's last fight with Vittori, where Vettori was getting the better in terms of like the numbers. He was outlanding Dolidze in every single round. It wasn't that close, but the fight was close, and that was because Dolidze was having the much bigger moments. He was landing some big shots, and a lot of people thought that Dolidze won. It was a unanimous decision for Vettori, 29-28 on 2 of the judges' scorecards, and then 1 judge had it 30-27. But you could absolutely make a case that Dolidze won the fight just based off of him landing the bigger shots. And, you know, Imavov, I think his volume is going to be much better. I think he has more tested cardio. He's been 25 minutes. But Dolidze is just one of those guys that you just never want to count out. He's opportunistic. He's really dangerous. He's really tough. So it's a fight where I kind of like the over, if anything, just because both these guys are next level durable, especially Roman Dolidze. So the over 2.5 is something I have circled. But outside of that, I don't really want to lay -160 against Roman Dolidze. This guy just always seems to find a way to get it done, even though he's not the best minute winner. I mean, he doesn't really throw much. He doesn't have the best cardio, but he's super tough and super dangerous. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this main event?
Yeah, I agree with you. 10 of Dolidze's 12 wins come inside the distance, and 4 of his 6 UFC wins come inside the distance. So, you know, he's definitely a finisher, and he's a guy who finds those big moments in fights. And you have to do that when you're only attempting 8.91 distance strike attempts per minute. You know, you're going to have to be landing with some power. And boy, he's doing exactly that. 4 knockdowns in only 8 fights. So that's pretty impressive, seeing as Nassourdine has 0 knockdowns. Now, and that's even more concerning, seeing as he went 3 rounds with Phil Hawes, you know, who gets knocked out by a hot shower. So I think that there's a big power differential here in terms in Dolidze's favor. There's obviously also just a submission grappling difference here for Dolidze. You know, I mean, this guy's a BJJ black belt, you know, a Pan American champion, if I'm not mistaken. This guy's, you know, a legit Brazilian jiu-jitsu player with nasty leg locks. So, you know, I think Dolidze's got a lot of ways to win this fight, but because Imavov is a durable dude, you know, because this fight is scheduled for 5 rounds and not 3, there's a lot of reasons to like Imavov. He's the smoother striker. Like you say, he throws more volume. He's definitely more accurate and defensively responsible than Dolidze is. So I think he's going to do more while this is on the feet. But I do think that Dolidze is going to be able to win minutes with his grappling. And I think he can win moments on the feet here. So I kind of feel like this is a good spot for Roman. You know, plus money on Roman Dolidze. I know that he just lost to Vettori, but, you know, Imavov hasn't really beaten anybody at that level yet. I mean, he's got wins over Heinisch, over Shabazian, over Joaquin Buckley. That's not the same as beating like a Marvin Vettori type. And like you said, I thought Dolidze probably should have won that fight because of the bigger moments. You know, they talk about how it's damage over control now. No, it's not. It's whatever the judges feel like on that day, or whoever they pay the judges to pick out, because sometimes it's damage, sometimes it's control, and there's no rhyme nor reason as to when it's going to be what. So I like the moment winning potential of Dolidze wherever the fight goes here. And I like the fact that this guy has just been absolutely white hot lately. He seems to be very confident. I think he's a tough matchup for Imavov, and I think the plus money on Dolidze is very interesting this week.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, you can Dolidze at plus money anytime makes a lot of sense. The 5 rounds for Dolidze concerns me a little bit. Like, his cardio seems to fall off a cliff in a lot of fights, but I don't think Imavov has the best cardio either. So maybe it does cancel out there. Do you think Dolidze does wrestle though? Like, he doesn't wrestle a ton outside of the Staropoli fight.
18 takedown attempts in 8 fights, but you know, this is going to be something he's going to need to mix in. You know, what Dolidze really does do well is he's got 9 takedowns as Dolidze, and Dolidze's opponents have 8. So he's getting about 50% of the takedowns in his fight, but he's getting 80% of the control time, Brady. So he's very efficient winning in these grappling positions. So why not make Imavov do that? Because Imavov is the better striker here. I think we both know that. He's more technical. He's definitely faster than Roman. And he's got better footwork than Roman. So why wouldn't Roman maybe clinch up with him? Maybe try to wear on those arms, get those arms filled up with blood, try to take some of the sting off of those Imavov punches. And if he can get him to the ground, then that's where Roman really does some really good work.
Yep. Yep, we'll see. I'm going Imavov. I like the minute winning ability, but I can make a case for Dolidze as well. I don't want to lay -160 on Imavov. But yeah, I'll pick him to win though. The over 2.5, it was -125. I actually like that quite a bit. It's -160, got pounded apparently like today, so that sucks.
I gotta look at that. Did I even get that in my prop template yet? Let me look.
I mean, if you like Dolidze, though, you probably like the under.
Yeah, well, I mean, not necessarily though. I mean, I think that he can win a lot of minutes in the clinch. He's done that already. Actually, he gets to that clinch and wins minutes there, and that's where he finished. Kyle Dawkins was in the clinch. So, yeah, I had it at -125 for the over. You say it's -160 now?
Yeah, I got smashed.
And the unders at 130, is it?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I just changed that. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know. Imavov's been scheduled for 5 rounds once. Dolidze's been scheduled for 5 rounds exactly 0 times. So, in terms of a time prop, man, I think I'm just not even going to look at him.
Yeah, I really like the over at -125, -160. I don't love it as much, but I'd rather bet the over than lay -160 on Imavov because I don't think anybody's finishing Dolidze ever. I just don't think it's possible.
He's a tough dude, that's for sure, man. I mean, like those Georgian guys, they're warriors.
So finish only for Dolidze. Over is kind of where I'm looking, but I like the over a lot better at -125. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes throughout the week. But yeah, finish only for Dolidze. Like I don't see Imavov finishing Dolidze unless Dolidze's like death gassed. So
yeah. I mean, much younger guy here in Imavov, 6 years younger. That's definitely something. But this is a great main event. This is gonna be a fun one. And Roman's just been white hot lately. So I'm fired up to see Roman back in there. It's been a minute, dude. Almost 11 months since Roman Dolidze's last fight. So I'm interested to see how he performs.
Yep, great main event. My main event is the Dober Moicano fight, but it is a great main event nonetheless. All right, we are about an hour in. Weezy, any final thoughts on the card, and then also your plans for content for this week? Anything special? Any special appearances for UFC Vegas 85?
Yeah, not that I know of. I don't think I have any special appearances this week, and we've got a long stretch of 12 weeks starting here, so let's ease into it. Yeah, but I will be doing the DFS show right here on Pub Sports Radio with Brady, Monk, and Gordo on Wednesday at 8 o'clock Central Time, and I'll be doing a full card breakdown on my channel, the Uncle Weezy channel, Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time, and I'll be doing Ask Weezy, where you can ask me questions live on the air. About any of the stats, benchmarks, statistics that are available for these fights at Wednesday, 10 o'clock Central Time on my channel. The only thing left to do, stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Vegas 85. I'm fired up for this card. I got 3.5 units on the Thomas Peterson money line. I've got 1 unit on the Chuck Buffalo money line at +180. Chicago, Illinois, stand up. Valley Flow striking, stand up, and there'll be more bets to come. I'll be giving them all out on my Patreon.
Nice. I like both those bets. Haven't bet anything yet, but I do like both those spots, and I'm looking at some other spots as well. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I did post a main event breakdown. My full card breakdown will be out tomorrow, and then we got the usual content to follow. Leave a like on your way out, subscribe to the channel, and best of luck for UFC Vegas 85. See you guys later.